speak about the way they felt alone as well. Fast forward to 2019, and it's now a topic that people are talking about a lot more. There was a festival called the Cradle Arts Festival, which is actually coming back, which is an arts festival that was related and just focused entirely on smashing the stigma
Or
around
mental health.
and around mental illness. I think it's there that I had someone say that everyone is fine about talking about mental health. Talk about mental illness and people start leaving the room.
Yeah.
And so the director of the play, Julissa Rowe, actually went and did some research and found this play called Every Brilliant Thing. There's a solo performance play whose basic premise is you have a narrator on stage talking about how when he was the age of 7, his depressed mom actually had an attempt on her own life. And then he started writing a list of everything that's brilliant about the world to kind of like bring her back into the light. And he keeps at this list pretty much all through his life. And as he grows up, so does the list. And the play is really his musings about all of this. Now, as much as the subject matter is heavy, it's a very light-hearted, very beautiful play. There's a lot of laughter. There's a bit of tears. There's dancing and singing. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's
Can I
beautiful
ask
play.
you a slightly controversial question? Do you
Sure.
sometimes feel like you have to give that disclaimer because people may not want to, engage with subject matters that are so
Absolutely.
heavy?
The answer is absolutely yes. And I don't blame people. Yeah, of course, if there's something that's ailing you or ailing someone close to you, or it's something that's steeped in stigma or misunderstanding, yeah, then you probably don't want to approach it. You won't run like you would.
Towards it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you would, our improv show, for instance. So I understand. And to anyone who's thinking, nah, that's not really my deal, I'm like, no, it actually is. It's for everyone. It's a beautiful play.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, when you hear your story and your authenticity, especially just putting yourself at the forefront, and you're saying many people who are struggling with, no, you're struggling with that aspect of depression, and nobody was talking about it. All these years later, now we're doing film and theater, and people are starting to talk about it a little bit more. How does that make you feel looking back at your 2010 self? And the journey that it's taken to get all these years later, 13 years later, where the space is a little bit more open. How does that make you feel looking
Wow.
back?
That's a really good question. I'll say this. We've lost people since I'm sure individually you've
Yes.
lost people
Yeah.
because they lost the battle, or they lost. Someone actually posted and said that if we talk about depression, we talk about suicide. Suicide is an illness, and I mean suicide is the last. What do you say? Symptom of an illness,
Of an illness.
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
is depression. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. We've come a very long way. I was on a WhatsApp group where a bunch of us, former employees of an ad agency that I used to work at, were mourning the death of someone who had taken their own life. And I remember someone coming on and saying, listen, I'm going to say the truth. I think anyone that takes this decision and leaves a wife and kids is selfish. And I repeat, anyone who takes this and leaves behind a wife and children who were his dependents is selfish. And I remember there was a psychologist on the group, had left her job in advertising and now went into psychology, and very gently told her, you would never understand what the reality is of someone who's going through a really dark place and what that would lead them to. And it actually climaxed into a conversation, a very honest conversation about mental illness, and people talking about how they were also struggling with it. And you needed that at that time. There were still people that thought, and there are still people who think that now.
Yeah, they're like, oh, that's selfish of you, or
Yeah.
that's, yeah.
But it's still, I think we still had a long way. We've come a long way in people being able to discuss it, and I'm glad they are. I just wish there wasn't so much collateral damage.
I know.
Yeah, we've lost a lot of people, and even now we're still living in a world that's very designed for mentally healthy people, even if it's that same world that is driving them into the pits.
Yeah.
So you're still supposed to show up to work. You're still supposed to show up to your
Social
duties.
functions,
Yeah.
to be a daughter, sister, mother,
A
friend,
exactly.
anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Still be that person and
Yeah.
play that role as if you're at 100% with very little support, societal support,
Yeah.
community support for people who are not able to keep up with those that are, running up ahead of them, in quotes.
Yeah. I absolutely get that.
Yeah.
We're gonna come back, go into the music and come back and talk a little bit more about Every Brilliant Thing.
Yeah.
Of course, comedy and how it plays into it, because I know you're part of an improv comedy group. And seeing how humor comes into dealing with such heavy subjects, and sometimes is it a coping mechanism or is it just to make it lighter and all of that?
Sure.
But we'll be back in just a moment. For now, enjoy the music. We've got Ayo, Chris Brown, Nthiga.